uh, we will start a portion of your syllabus which is very much significant, because that is a knowledge representation issues. I mentioned uh, in that class where I give you the brief idea about the all the modules. I mentioned that the knowledge representation will be the crucial for every other models, because if the knowledge representation is not if you can't represent the knowledge properly, then it will be very much difficult for you to access that knowledge also. Okay, so that's why these are. Okay, so whose audio is creating problem? Okay, so now let's move on. Now whatever I have already mentioned, that same thing is written over here, that in order to solve the complex AI problems, a large amount of knowledge and some mechanisms of manipulating that knowledge both are required. So only the representation will not be enough. You have to think about the way to access that knowledge also. Okay, so both the things are important. Okay, as far as solving the AI problems are concerned. Now, what is knowledge base? Okay. Now, in a very simple way, I can say that knowledge base is nothing but a collection of facts and rules. Okay, facts and rules. So, for the time being, let's concentrate on the facts first. So, fact, as you all know, that facts means that which is unconditionally true statements. Okay, so we believe that those sentences are always true, right? Those are called facts. Now the thing is that when we are talking about facts in so it should be represented uh, in a natural language, right? So for the time being, we consider English as a natural language here. So the facts are represented in English for the casual users, for the normal users, right? We normally communicate with English in English, so the facts are represented in English. But the point is that whenever you are trying to solve some problems, AI problems, and you expect that your agent will solve it, so those facts should be represented in a form which is easier for your agent to understand, right? So that's why we should choose a representation technique, representation method. So the first question, so here what the figure shows, I hope all of you can see this thing. Now what this figure says, that this is an internal, so the first rectangle represents the facts, and those facts are simple English sentences. Okay, now the second block, the second rectangle represents the internal representation. So internal representation means the representation method that you have chosen for your agent, right? It can be different, it can be from one, but as I said that there can be different type of representation techniques. I will show you later on. Now here in general we have shown this rectangle, that here some representation techniques, representation methods are used over here. So now what this stage is doing, now here these English sentences are mapped in this representation, because all the algorithms that will be working over here, they don't understand the English sentence, they don't understand the English structures. Okay, so they will be working on a suitable structure, on a suitable representations. So your job will be first to map those English sentences into that representations, right? So hopefully this will make sense. So this is the first level of mapping. Now after this, when you got these representations, now some algorithms, the reasoning algorithms, whatever you choose, that will be working on these representations, and you got some new things, because these reasoning programs, I mentioned in that class that what the reasoning means. Reasoning is actually, it infers some new things. So some new knowledge comes as an output of those algorithms. Now the problem again is that those new knowledge is also be in that representation method. It will be represented in the same method because your algorithms are working on these methods, right? But as a casual user or as a normal user, we don't understand this thing. Okay, so what we understand the English. So that's why another level of mapping, backward mapping, or you can say, so if you say it is an encoding, so this is like a decoding. So here again a mapping will be taken place that maps that representation to again the English representation. So what is going on over here? So you are giving some English sentences to your model, and first these English sentences are mapped to the to this representation. Algorithms are going on, algorithms are working on here, some new things come out, and those new things will again be mapped to this English sentence. So this is the overall scenario that will be going on. So are you getting my point? Whatever I am saying right now, is any queries, you can tell me, you can ask me at this stage. Now this will be much more clear if I go to the I show you some example. So let's see one example, and then I ask the same question again, that whether it is clear or not. So now whatever I have told just now, this is a this example actually reflects that thing. So what is written over here? That there is a fact, there is an English sentence, a simple English sentence, that Tommy is a dog. Okay, so this is a fact, right? This is a fact. Now this fact is represented in some representation like this. Okay, so this is the representation of this English sentence. Now there is another fact, that all dogs have tails. So similarly, this will be represented in a same representation that this representation is taking. So what is the meaning of that? Actually this representation is the predicate logic representation, if some of you just forget about those things. So I again mentioned that thing. So what is the meaning of this? It says that for all x, so this is the symbol of for all, so it is an universally quantified sentence. So for all x, dog x implies has tail x. So what does it mean? It means that if for all x, if x is a dog, it implies that x has tail. This is the representation of this fact, that all dogs have tails. Now some reasoning is going on these two sentences, right? Not now, just forget about this sentence. Now you are what is with you? You have just this sentence and this sentence, and some reasoning is going on, and what you got? You got what you infer, that has tail Tommy. But I don't understand that what is the meaning of this has tail Tommy. So that's why again the mapping, the second mapping is going on, and it converts this representation to the English representation, and it finds, or it gives you the sentence that Tommy has a tail. So now tell me whether it is okay or not, whether it is clear or not.
Clear, sir.
Fine. I think there should not be any confusion regarding this. Okay, after seeing this example. So this is the way that we will be doing the reasoning over here. So what we are given, So just step by step, if I summarize those things, so you will be given some English sentences, right? So English sentences are given. Now your first job will be to represent those English sentences to a suitable representation. And for the time being, we just assume that it can be either propositional sentence or predicate sentence. Okay, if proposition is enough, as I said in the last class, that proposition has its own limitations. So if you think that it is possible to represent all the sentences in propositions, then proposition is okay. But if you think that it is not possible, then you have to choose the predicate logic sentence, predicate logic representation. Now, after representing all these things, then some reasoning algorithm will be going on. So I will come to that. What is the algorithm will be there? There is a specific algorithm that will be running. So with the help of that algorithm, you infer something, right? So that is the whole scenario of that reasoning that we'll be working on here. Clear? Okay. So now, let's move on. So here, in this slide, whatever is written, I have already mentioned many of those. I mentioned in the last class that the characteristics of intelligent pupil is that they possess much knowledge. Knowledge may be declarative or procedural. Heuristics, we have discussed about heuristic in the last class. Knowledge is defined as a set of rules and facts. I mentioned in just beginning that a knowledge base is nothing but a set of collection of rules and facts. I mentioned about fact just before that. So a fact is always unconditionally true. But I have not mentioned about rules so far. So let's say something about the rules. So rule is nothing but a conditional statement. Okay. So there will be two parts in the rule. One is the condition part, another one is the conclusion part. Okay. Now here, I just try to give you some flavor of the prologue, because in the next week I will start it. So that's why I just give a very brief. It is a very brief thing. So conditional part. So condition. So there will be a symbol. There will be a symbol like this, colon dash, which actually separates the condition part and the conclusion part. Okay. So the right hand side of this symbol will be the condition part, whereas the left hand side of this is denotes the conclusion part. So what does it mean? That just comes to, I have given you an example for your help. So this picture is giving you the, actually with this type of diagram I start my lab, although it is partially given, but the idea is that whatever information you will be given, you have to start with that. Okay. So what is this is actually a partly given family tree. And what is the meaning of that? It means that Tom is a parent of Bob, and Pam is a parent of Bob, and Anne is a parent of Bob. Okay. So these are the facts. Okay. These are the facts that Pam is a parent of Bob, Tom is a parent of Bob, and Bob is a parent of Anne. These are the facts as far as this scenario is concerned. So that is written like this. Okay. Parent is a relation, and that relation has two objects, Tom and Bob. But the point is that whenever I write this thing and you just forget about this picture, then is it possible for you to understand that which one is parent and which one is children? Which one is parent and which one is child?
No, sir.
No. Okay. So that means it is completely the responsibility of the programmer to make the convention, and whatever convention you set, you have to follow that convention throughout your program. Otherwise, you got the wrong result, because Prolog does not have any mechanism to check it, because you don't know. Whenever you write that thing, it understand. You set the meaning that I write the first object as a parent and the second object as a child. If you try to use in a different way, then you can it, but you have to follow the same convention throughout the program. Okay, if you change the convention in between, then you will get a wrong result. Okay, so here the convention that I have said, that I write the parent first and then the child. So Tom is a parent of Bob. Okay, so that is a fact, right? But when I write this type of sentence, this is actually the rule. So as I said, that the colon dash is a symbol which separates the two parts of the condition and the conclusion. So as it's written over here, the right hand side is the condition and the left hand side is the conclusion. So what is the meaning? The meaning is that X is the offspring of Y, that is the conclusion. When it will happen? If Y is the parent of X, right? So this is the way of writing the rule. And what is the difference between facts and rules? So facts are unconditionally true statements, but rule will depend on some conditions. Okay, so it will be true if some conditions are satisfied. So your knowledge base will contain some set of facts and rules, and when you apply some reasoning over here, some new facts will be coming, and that facts will be included in your knowledge base, and in this way your knowledge base will be enriched. Okay, and as your knowledge base will be enriched, you will be much more experienced. So that is the overall picture. So are you getting this? Whatever I have mentioned here, any confusion? If you have any question regarding okay, so someone says Shayantoni Ghosh said, please repeat again the rule. Okay, fine. So what I am saying, rule means, as I said, that rule is the conditionally true statements, not unconditionally true. The conditionally true statements. So conditionally true statements means that there will be a symbol this, that it means if. So that is the meaning of if. So if something happens, then something will be true. Now what is the something happens? So something happens means this is the right hand side. That is the condition part. So if this condition is true, then only this conclusion will be true. Okay? So first you write the conclusion and then you write the condition, and this is I am saying in terms of the prologue. Okay, so because we start the prologue in the next week, so that's why I discuss this thing in terms of prologue. But the main idea is, the general idea is, the rule will contain two parts. In the condition part, another one is the conclusion part. Okay, so rule will be true. So rule is not always true. It will be true if the condition part is getting true. So is it okay now? Perfectly understood, sir. Okay, fine. Thank you. Now let's move on. Actually, if you have any confusion regarding the prologue part, because I say that let it be, because that will be clear when we start the labs. Okay, but my idea objective is to give you the basic ideas that what we are going to do in the labs. Okay, so that's why I have given this slide over here. Now come to a specific type of knowledge, inheritable knowledge. Actually, it will be very much clear to you because you are studying object-oriented programming parallelly, and you have the idea of the inheritance, property inheritance, right? So where the attributes are inherited. Okay, so for this type of knowledge, if you find that there is a flavor of the inheritance, then you could use a representation model that is called as semantic network or slot and filler structure or a collection of frames. All these things are anonymous to each other. So although this term is much more popular, that is semantic network. So semantic network is mainly used for inheritable knowledge, where the property inheritance feature is there. Okay. Now to make this thing understand, I have given an example. I hope with this example it will be clear to you. So let's see this. So this picture gives you an example of a baseball player. Okay, now this is like a semantic network, and when we move from top to down over here, we are going to the specialized version, special cases. But when we are moving from bottom to up, then we will be reaching to the generalized version, right? So what does it mean? So here my meaning is that like this, that baseball player is an adult male. Adult male is a person, right? Now pitcher is a baseball player, fielder is also a baseball player. A is an instance of a pitcher. Pitcher is a type of, if some of you understand baseball, then you should clear this thing, that you have the clear idea that there is some players called pitcher, there are some players called fielder, and A is a name of a player, B is a name of a player. So that's why the attributes are changing from ISA to instance over here. So A is an instance of a pitcher, B is an instance of a fielder, and A belongs to the team 1 and B belongs to the team 2. And there are some other attributes are also there, the batting average, then height, then etc. etc. ISA is a attribute. Okay, so there are different type of attributes are can be used over here. So ISA means that adult male is a person. So that means adult male is a type of a person. Similarly, baseball player is a type of adult. Okay, so ISA. And instance means that is a name. Okay, so A is a name of a person who is a pitcher. Okay, now what is interesting over here, that question that comes, that how inference will be going on this type of structures. Okay, so inference means, suppose I can ask this question to this structure, that what is the batting average of a fielder? Okay, so what is the batting average of a fielder? So how could your model answer these questions? So the idea is that you first try to figure out that particular object that is in the question in this model. Okay, and you start from the bottom. So we start from the bottom and try to find out. So my question is, what is the batting average of the fielder? So I try to find out the fielder in my structure. Okay, so I start from here and I find that this is a fielder, and now I try to find out whether the batting average attribute is associated with this object directly or not. If I got this thing, then this particular value will be returned as a result. But if I did not find that batting average is not given with this object directly, then I will move up. Okay, so when I move up, then I find a object over here and I search for again the batting average attribute with that object or not. If it is given, then I will get that result. If it is not, then again I will move up and find out that thing. Okay, so in this way I will move up and got the result. So so is it okay? Any question up to this regarding this? Okay, so I hope that there is no question regarding this. Got it, fine. So that is called a semantic network, where the property inheritance is there. So if you find that in your representation something like that is there, so you can use this type of structure, right? So it depends on that which type of application you are dealing with, right? So next is the inferential knowledge, and that is most of this part of our syllabus. We will be doing that thing, that is inferential. That means we are trying to infer something, And for that, the logic, we will use the logic, as I said, the propositional logic or predicate logic. And the reasoning, I have mentioned this thing in earlier classes, that there will be two type of reasoning: forward reasoning, backward reasoning. And the third, the thing that is written over here, that is called resolution. And this is the algorithm that we will need to study over here. So resolution is an algorithm that will be used over here, that will be used on that logical structures to infer something, right? And here I have given one sentence to make you understand about that predicate logic. Another thing I need to mention over here at this stage, that I also saying that it is a predicate logic, but to be more precise, here what we are interested in, to use the first order predicate logic, right? There can be a higher order predicate logic also, but we will be using the first order predicate logic. Now, what is the difference between first order and the higher order? Now, first order, in a first order predicate logic, the quantifiers are associated with the variables. Now, if you go on to the second order predicate logic, the quantifiers are associated with the relations, with the functions. Okay, so that is the basic difference. So although we are not bothered about the second order or the higher order predicate logic, so here for the time being we confined ourselves to the first order. So first order, as I said, the first order predicate logic means the quantifiers are associated with the variables, not anything else. So here, what is the meaning of this sentence? For all x, instance x comma Roman. So what does it mean? It means that for all x, if x is a Roman, then it implies that either x will be loyal to Caesar or x hates Caesar, right? So this is a sentence that will be taken from one example. We will be seeing this example later on, but here I am giving you to get you to make you comfortable about this type of sentence. Okay, so this is a implies. So implies, I know you remember the truth table of the implies. If not, I will be coming to that. But still, what is the meaning? That for all x, if x is Roman, then x will be loyal to Caesar or x hates Caesar. So is it okay?
Yes, sir.
Fine.
Sir, can you just repeat what you said?
Which one? This one?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I am saying that if this type of sentence, actually this is a predicate logic sentence, and the quantifiers are associated, that is a universal quantifier. So the meaning is that for all x, if x is a Roman, instance x comma Roman means that if x is a Roman, then either it implies, so it is an implies, so it implies that x either is loyal to Caesar or x hates Caesar. Fine?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Now, there is procedural knowledge. We will be seeing this procedural knowledge in our programming class. So here the inference are taking place, or it is doing in terms of writing the programs. Okay, in terms of writing the codes, and we will be writing the code either in Prolog or Lisp, as I said in the class. So there is nothing much concerning over here. Okay, so now let's start with this part. So logic. Okay, all of you are familiar with this. As I said, that two type of logic we will be studying over here: the propositional logic. Another one is the first order predicate logic. Okay, and what are the things that will be important as far as the logic are concerned? What are the different components that every logic should have? Can anyone tell me what are the two components that every logic should have? No, either true or false. I am not saying, I am not trying to say that. Either true or false is a different thing. What is my question is that what are the two components that when we will study some logic, what are the two components that we need to study with that logic, for that logic? It can be propositional logic or predicate logic, but what can be the two things that we always need to study for every logical sentence, for every logical statement? Okay, so actually two things are very much important. One is called the syntax of the logic. One is called the syntax of the logic, and the second one is called the semantics of the logic. Right? So these are very much important, and for every logic, these two are very much vital, right? Very much important. So what the syntax says, you know syntax very well, because in programming logic, in programming languages, you are always dealing with that syntax. So what the syntax says? What do you mean by saying syntax? Structure. Okay, someone says structure, grammar, fine. So actually syntax means the rules, as you said, the grammar. So in logical sentence also there are some structure, okay, there are some rules, and you have to obey that rule to form a logical sentence, right? So if it is a propositional logic, okay, so we are starting the propositional logic first. So if it is a propositional logic, then that every sentence should have some syntax, right? Should have some rules, and you have to follow that rule so that you can write a valid propositional logic sentence. Okay, now what is that rule? What is that rule? So there will be some atoms, that means the characters. Okay, now one thing what I should say, that the system says I have less than 1 minute left, so it will be better if I stop here, and you will join within 3-4 minutes quickly. Okay, so let's start with from that point where I left. So as I said, that the syntax gives you the rule of framing the sentences. Okay, so for the propositional sentence, you know these things. Although you know, I just repeat once again if you forget in any case. So it's, there will be some atoms. So these are the characters that begin with a capital letter. There is a formality that the propositions will start with the capital letters, and there will be 5 connectives. There will be 5 operations, the logical operations. What are those? The logical, or, and, not, implies, and. So this is if, and this is if and only if. Okay, so these are the 5 connectives that will be used in a proposition. Okay, and there is another term which is called well-formed formulas, WFFs. So how those? So when you will say that you write a well-formed formulas. So there will be any atom like this. If W1 and W2 are two WFFs, so every atom is a WFF. Okay, that is the first rule. Any atom is a WFF. If W1 and W2 are two WFFs, then so are W1 or W2, W1 and W2, not W1. W1 implies W2, W1 if and only if W2. And all formulas are generated from a finite number of the above mentioned operations. Okay, so these are the basic rules. So whenever you are talking about some rules, as I said, this forming the syntax. Okay, and you have to follow, you have to obey that syntax. Okay, whenever you write the sentence. Now, apart from that, along with that, there will be some semantics. There will be one thing that is called the semantics. And what is the semantics? Semantics is the meaning of a sentence. Okay, as you said in the one of the earlier classes, that proposition is a declarative sentence that can be either true or false. So that means there will be some truth value. Okay, so there should be one truth value of every proposition. Now, what is that truth value? What is the meaning? That will be determined by the semantics of a sentence. Okay, so that is so along with syntax, there will be a semantics. Okay, now how to get the semantics? So suppose you have a sentence like this, that P and not Q. Okay, now actually here I should write that and operator over here, not this type of things. Okay, it will be better to write P and so P and not Q. So how to get the semantics of this sentence? Now, before that, you should know the interpretation of P and Q. Okay, because P is a proposition, Q is also a proposition. So P can be either true or false, Q can also be either true or false. So if one interpretation where P is set true and Q is set false, then what will be the interpretation? What will be the meaning of this sentence? The meaning will be true and not false. So that means true. So that means the whole semantics will be true. Right? So are you getting my point? What I'm trying to say?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you should know the interpretation. You should know the instance for which you are going to find out the meaning of the sentence, right? Okay, someone says something.
Sir, third point একবার repeat করবেন please.
কোন পয়েন্টটা?
Third point for a sentence like P and
আচ্ছা, ঠিক আছে. Okay, so what is there, that you have given a sentence like this, right? P and not Q, where P is a proposition, Q is also a proposition, and you are asked to find out the meaning of this whole sentence. So for that, you should know that for which interpretation you are going to find out the meaning of this sentence. Okay, so interpretation means what? Interpretation means what is the truth value of P and Q individually, because P can be either true or false, Q can be either true or false. So here we have taken one interpretation that where P is true and Q is false. তাহলে কি হবে? What will be the meaning of this sentence? তাহলে if you put P true over here, so this is true and Q হচ্ছে false, তাহলে if Q is false then not Q is true, then true and true will be true. So the meaning of this sentence will be true for this interpretation. But if I write P true and Q also true, then it will be false. So the meaning will be changed for different interpretations. Right? Okay, so now let's move on. So this is a truth table that I shown you to understand some of the basics. If any case you forget. So let's see what is saying over here. Capital T and capital F denotes always the true sentence and false sentence. Okay, so these are the two special sentences. This is always true, this is always false. Okay, now and other than that, T and T dash denote any two true sentences, and F and F dash denote any two false sentences, আর A হচ্ছে any sentence. Okay, তাহলে so if F is a false sentence, then not F will be true. If T is a true sentence, not T will be false. T and T dash will be true because T is a true, T dash is also true. F and A, it will be false. Why? Because since it is and, so if anyone is false, either one is false, then it will be false. Similarly to this one, that if either one is true for a or, then it will be true, right? So up to 4, I don't think there is any problem. But coming to 5 and 6, so 5 and 6 gives you the idea for the implies, right? So are you getting this thing that A implies T is a true sentence? Do you agree with that A implies T is a true sentence?
Yes, sir.
Fine. So A implies T is a true sentence, right? T implies false is a false sentence. Okay, is it okay? T implies
Yes,
false is a fine. But false implies A is true. Okay, so this is the truth table I shown you to get that thing, that basics, just to recap those things. Okay,
Sir?
so this is required. Huh.
False implies A কি করে মানে true sentence হচ্ছে?
কোনটা?
False implies A এটা true sentence কি করে হচ্ছে?
কি করে হচ্ছে, তুমি ট্রুথ টেবিলটা মনে করো কি ছিল? For implies there will be one false, and that is for this case, that true implies false. For all other cases it will be true. ঠিক আছে, মানে এটার মানে কি, why it is false? Because if the condition is true and the conclusion is false, then only it is false.
Yes,
If
sir.
true implies false, then only the whole sentence will be false. Otherwise, for all other cases, it will be true.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. Now, why I show you this thing? Because this will be required. Okay, when this will be required? So like this. Suppose this type one sentence is given to you, and you are asked to find the meaning of this sentence, the semantics of this sentence. So can anyone tell me what will be the meaning of this sentence when all these P, Q, R and Q, P, Q, R are true? Can anyone tell me?
Sir, P or complement of Q.
তুমি আগে করো, তুমি নিজে করো, করে তারপরে বলো। P, Q, R all are true. Then what will be the meaning of this sentence?
True.
Sir, true.
আচ্ছা দেখি, let's check. So if P is true, Q is true, then it is false. So this is false, and this is true. So false implies true is true. True or true is true, right? This is true, right? So this is the way how you can find the meaning of a sentence or semantics of a sentence, right? Now, although I should mention over here that this finding out the semantics of the propositions is quite easy. Okay, that we have already seen that these are the proposition sentence. So to find out the meaning of the sentence for a proposition is easy, but we will see later on when we are moving to predicates, then it will be not that much easy to find out the meaning of a sentence. Okay, we will see later on that why it is so. But before that, so let's see next. Now these are the properties of sentences. Again, I hope all these things you are familiar with, but still I just go through those things very quickly. So first of all, satisfiable. So if there is some interpretation for which the sentence is true, then it is called satisfiable. Like P is satisfiable. Why? Because P are two interpretations, either true or false. And here it is saying that if there is some interpretation for which it is true, then it is satisfiable. So P is satisfiable, right? Now, there is another property that is called valid. Valid means if it is true for every interpretation, right? Like say P or not P, it is a valid. Okay, and the relationship between valid and satisfiable is that if it is a valid, then it is always be satisfiable. But if it is satisfiable, then there is no meaning that every time it will be valid, right? So valid means that for every interpretation it is true. But PL, if I take true, then it will be true. If I take false, then also it will be true. So that's why it is valid. Similarly, contradiction. If there is no interpretation for which it is true, then it is called contradiction. Like P and not P, it's contradiction. Equivalence. Two sentences are equivalent if they have the same truth value under every interpretation, right? So P implies Q and not P or Q. You know this thing because these two are equivalent. Okay. If you need to write a sentence without implication, then its equivalent sentence will be not P or Q because the truth table of these are always same, right? These are the identical truth tables for these two. So that's why these are equivalent. And what about the logical consequence? A sentence is a logical consequence of another if it is satisfied by all the interpretations that satisfy the first. So what is the meaning? That P is a logical consequence of P and Q. Why it is so? Because when P and Q will be true, when P will be true and Q will be true. So for this interpretation, it will be true, right? So and for that interpretation of P is also true, right? So that's why P is a logical consequence of this one, right? So a sentence is a logical consequence of another if it is satisfied by all the interpretations that satisfy the first. This one will be true for the interpretation of P when P is true. And with that interpretation, P is also true. So that's why P is a logical consequence of P and Q. Right? So, are you getting it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Fine. Now let's see. Let's move on. Now, for propositions, these are the three rules that will be very frequently used to infer. Okay, and I hope you are familiar with these three: modus ponens, modus tollens, and chain rule. So what is said? Modus ponens, what is said that if P is true and P implies Q is true, then from that you can infer Q. What modus tollens says, if not Q is true and P implies Q is true, you can infer not P. And chain rule is very obvious that if P implies Q is true and Q implies R is true, then you can infer P implies R. Right? I hope it is. These are very much familiar, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So now you have some. I will come to that. But before that, what I want you to read these 2 points first, and then I will ask you some question. So first. Okay, no, actually I have to say this thing and then I can go there. Okay, so let's see. Now, as I said, that resolution is the basic algorithm that will be used over here. Now, I give you very, very informal way to describe resolution over here, that how the resolution works. Now, come to this one. Now, there are two clauses and these two clauses are conjoined with each other. What is the meaning of conjoined with each other? Actually, these two clauses are in CNF. What is CNF? What is CNF?
Conjunctive normal form.
Right, conjunctive normal form. I expect that you should say Chomsky normal form, but since you are studying that automata in parallel, so okay, it's good that conjunctive normal form. So what is the meaning? That end of ors. Okay, now see what is the thing. Tale, so what is written that this is a lambda. Suppose this is the one literal lambda or sigma 1, and it is not lambda or sigma 2, right? Now from these two we can infer sigma 1 union sigma 2 or sigma 1 or sigma 2. How it is possible? Now these two are ANDed with each other. Now this lambda, it can be either true or false. Now suppose I assume that lambda is true for the time being. So if lambda is true, then this one will be false. But if this one will be false, then sigma 2 should be true to make it true, to make the second clause true. Similarly, if lambda is false, then sigma 1 should be true to make the first clause true, right? Because these are ANDed with each other. So now with this, what we can get, what we can infer is sigma 1 or sigma 2. So
then what will be true? Say,
no, what will be true na? Ki bollam, bujhle ki? Ami bollam
না আমি বলছি স্যার তাহলে এই পুরো রেজাল্টটা ট্রু হবে মানে সিগমা 1
না রেজাল্টটা ট্রু হবে, হ্যাঁ, বাট না এখানে আমার অবজেক্টিভটা কি? আমার মাই অবজেক্টিভ ইজ টু ইনফার সামথিং. নাও ইউ হ্যাভ গিভেন টু ক্লজেস, সে দিস ইজ ক্লজ 1 and this is clause 2, and with from these two clauses what is the thing that you infer? That is sigma 1 union sigma 2, sigma 1 or sigma 2. That is the result, that is the output that you get from these two.
Yes.
Right, that is the resolvent. Actually the term is resolvent. Okay, so acha, so one thing I want to know from you, whether this is okay, whatever I explain, is it okay to everyone?
Yes.
Okay, so I assume that it is okay. Now what is the thing? The basic idea of resolution is if you are given a set of sentences in a predicate logic form or propositional form, you have to pick two sentences randomly in such a way that in one clause one literal is in the positive form and in another clause that literal is in the negative form. So if you can pick that two randomly in such a way, then you can get the resolvent like this. So what I'm trying to say, that these are the two clauses, and in this clause lambda is a literal which is in the positive form in clause 1 and is in the negative form is in another clause. Then whatever is remained, that will be the resolvent, and that is possible if and only if these two clauses are conjoined with each other. These two clauses are in CNF. So to resolution to work, our first criteria should be that the clauses should be represented in CNF. So we will come to that. So that is the first step. Okay, otherwise you can't conclude this. You can't conclude, you can't come to this conclusion if it is not conjoined with each other, right? Okay, so now whatever I want these two. So just read these two sentences one by one, and then I have a question for you. So first by reading, by going through this, tell me whether it is you understood this thing or not. Are you getting it? Someone says something, but I can't hear what it says.
Yes, sir, it's clear, sir.
Okay, fine. Now, the point is that how it can be shown. What is my question over here? It is written that, so these are the two clauses. As I said, if I applying resolution over here, this is the resolvent. Okay, as I said, because P is the positive one, not P is a negative, so this will be cut it out and we get R or Q. Now here it is written that this can also be proved by the rule of chaining. So my question is, how can you get this result by the rule of chaining? So can anyone tell me that how can it be shown? Yeah, Neha, tell me. Just yeah, someone raised a hand. Neha raised a hand. So Neha, please unmute yourself and you can tell me. We will add P or minus P in between. Add P or minus, not P in between. What does it mean? If R or P is true and true implies R or Q is true by chaining. Yes, that is my question. What the Vedika says, that if this is true, it implies this is true by chaining. Yeah, we have to show the same thing using chaining. This is here the result we got by using resolution, right? And my question is, it is written over that this can also be proved by the rule of chaining. So my question is that how can you show it by using chaining? Okay, so let me so do I give you the answer?
Sir, that R
Bolo.
R or P and that not P and the thing is written. the both of them are individually true, right?
Yeah.
So by chaining means we in the
Chaining means na. Chaining means I just show you. Chaining
Yeah.
means this thing. Okay.
yes.
This one is the chaining. Okay. Okay. So now tell me. এটা কিন্তু খুব ইজি, ঠিক আছে, এটা ভেরি ইজি। I have given, I have actually already given the answer also. See, I have shown you one thing just before, that these two are logically equivalent with each other. P implies Q and not P or Q, right? So the same thing is going to be applied over here. Sorry. Yeah. So R or Q, what will be the equivalent sentence of R or Q using imply? If P implies Q, the equivalent sentence is not P or Q. তাই তো? তাহলে এখানে কি হবে? তাহলে what will be the equivalent sentence of R or P? Not R implies P, is not it? Not R implies P.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and similarly, what about for this one? What about for not P or Q? P implies Q. তাহলে এবারে কি হলো? Not R implies P or P implies Q. Then what we'll get by applying chaining? Not R implies Q, right? এবারে not R implies Q equivalent sentence কি হবে? R or Q? Got it?
Yes, sir.
Got it? So this is the way how you have to show this. So if it is asked that show that chaining is a special case of resolution, so you have to show in this way that we can implement or we can prove the resolution by using chaining, right? So now do the second one. Now tell me the second one. So what is said over here, that R and not R or P. If I apply resolution, then it will give you P, because R and not R will be cut it out and only P remains. So what is written, that this can also be proved by modus ponens. So how can you show the same result by using modus ponens? That is the question. And what is modus ponens? That if you forget, I just show you that if P is true and P implies Q is true, then Q is true. That is the modus ponens. So now tell me that how can you show the same result using modus ponens?
R and P will change to R implies P.
Did not get you. Just tell me again.
Sir, not of R and P will change to R implies P.
Right.
and R, and then we can do model scoring.
Yeah, got it. So what he says that R will be R, and we can write not R or P. The equivalent sentence will be R implies P. Tale R is true and R implies P is also true. So with that, by applying modus ponens, we got P is true. Right? Very good. Okay, so this is the way how you can conclude that modus ponens is also a special case of resolution. Okay, so I hope these two examples are clear.
Yes, sir.
Fine. So now let's see what is next. Now, not much time left, so I just give you this thing. So I will end you with this slide. Now, what is this? That resolution by refutation. Now here, very significant term is written over here, that the working principle of resolution is that it always works by refutation. What does it mean by refutation? It means that you start with the negation of the goal to be proved, and with that, if you reach to a contradiction at the end, that means the negation is false and that the positive one is true. Are you getting what I'm saying just now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is the just you please remember that thing, okay? Because resolution works by refutation. So whatever you are, suppose someone gives you some goal that you are supposed to reach to that goal. So what you will do? You start with the negation of that. That means you are trying to prove the negation of that, and in the end, at the end, you reach at the contradiction. So when you reach at the contradiction, then your conclusion is that whatever we start with, that is false. That means the positive one will be true. Okay. So with this, so what are the steps? So these are the steps that needs to be followed. So first step, as I said, that convert all the WFFs to CNF. Okay, conjunctive normal form. Convert the negation of the WFF to be proved to CNF also. That means the goal also need to be converted to CNF. Combine all the CNF clauses into a single set, just name it tau. Now, iteratively apply resolution to the clauses in tau and add those results to tau either until there are no more resolvents that can be added or until the empty clause is produced. So these are the 4 steps that we need to follow whenever we are going to apply resolution. So just go through those steps and tell me which one you don't understand. I will explain those things. Sorry. Yeah. So are the steps clear to you?
No, sir.
No, sir. Which one? Which one is
Sir,
not
third
clear?
and fourth one.
Third and fourth one. Okay, fine. Now, third is saying that you convert these WFFs, the first point, to CNF and convert the goals to CNF. So you take this delta and omega in a single set and make it tau. Give it a name tau. Okay, that is the combined sets of all CNFs. And the fourth one says, as I said, that you pick the 2 sentences randomly in such a way that one literal will be in the positive one in one clause and one literal will be in the negative one. And this process will be iteratively applied until you don't find any resolvents or you reach the empty clause. So basically the fourth one says what is the terminating condition. The terminating condition will be if there are no resolvents or there is empty clause. Okay, now the point is that if there is some confusion, we will resolve this confusion in the next class with the example. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So that will be much more clear, I hope.
So this type of proof can come in exam.
এটা কোনো proof নেই। Okay, I have just less than 1 minute time. So what I am saying that it's not a proof. You need to apply those things in an example. There will be some examples. We will see the examples later on. Clear?